Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander David Brewer. We warmly welcome the family of Private Frederick Cheeswright, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please sit if you wish to do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick Cheeswright. Frederick Cheeswright was born in 1888 in Heathcote, Victoria, and grew up in the nearby town of Tubarak, about 50 kilometres to the southeast of Bendigo. Known as Fred in the local community, he was the third son born to William and Christina Cheeswright. He attended the local school at Tubarak and later worked as a woodcarter and a labourer. He was a keen and talented footballer who played as a ruckman for his school and later for the local Tubarak team. Cheeswright's father, William, passed away in 1914, and when Frederick Cheeswright signed up to serve for Australia in the Great War, he listed himself as sole provider for his widowed mother. Cheeswright enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in May 1916 and began months of training in Bendigo with reinforcements for the 60th Australian Infantry Battalion. On the 2nd of October 1916, he sailed from Melbourne aboard the transport ship Nestor, bound for England. Here, he continued training for a month before departing for France and the war on the Western Front. Cheeswright joined the 60th Infantry Battalion for the first time in the field on the 8th of February 1917, when they were in the trenches at Devilwood and the Switch Needle Line. Cheeswright's battalion formed part of the 15th Brigade of the 5th Australian Division and spent the first months of 1917 pursuing German forces as they retreated to the Hindenburg Line, a series of well-defended trenches designed to shorten and strengthen German defensive positions. In May 1917, just over a year after Cheeswright enlisted to serve, the 60th Battalion saw serious action defending gains made in the Second Battle of Bullecourt. The field diary of Cheeswright's battalion recorded on the 12th of May that the whole unit acquitted itself well during a period of intermittent severe shelling. Bullecourt is considered one of the fiercest contested fronts on the British front at this time. The battle was a success, but came at the cost of nearly 7,500 Australian casualties. Later in the year, Cheeswright and the 60th Battalion moved north with the bulk of the Australian forces to participate in the fighting in the Flanders region of Belgium. On the 26th of September, they took part in the Battle of Polygon Wood, one of a series of battles fought by British and Commonwealth forces near the ruined town of Ypres. At Polygon Wood, Australian forces advanced 1.5 kilometres towards the remnants of a destroyed plantation to the south of Zonnebaker and successfully took their objectives. In a single day, Australia lost over 5,700 casualties. During this battle, Cheeswright and the men of the 60th Battalion climbed out of their trenches into no man's land and came under heavy German artillery fire. Private Cheeswright was killed during this advance. In the chaos and confusion during and after the battle, his body was never found, and it is likely he was killed by a high-explosive German artillery shell. His name is listed on the Menengate Memorial, which lists the names of nearly 55,000 soldiers of the First World War who have no known grave. Cheeswright was a popular man in his unit, and after his death, his fellow soldiers wrote home to his family to express their condolences. His family described him in a local newspaper as our darling hero. He was 29 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed here today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick Cheeswright, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, had thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.